The dead speak! Not even referring just to Palpatine. I'm referring to the Skywalker saga. They're still talking at us.
They're still justifying plot choices.
Wanted to talk about a couple things and then some other movie news as well. Before we go into that, sincerely do want to give our condolences to all those who were close with James Lipton from Inside the Actors Studio. I watched countless episodes of Inside the Actors Studio. Some of my favorite ones were like Conan O'Brien. Actually, Johnny Depp's from back in the day was an amazing one. Angelina Jolie's, Harrison Ford. There's a time where you could actually just look up all these interviews on YouTube, and then eventually they had to start taking them down due to copyright issues and whatever. I've always thought he was a fantastic interviewer. Oh, yeah. He was someone who was truly special, and he asked all these questions that not only got you to get into the personal life of so many amazing artists, but also you really did, through his questioning, really did receive a great study of the craft of acting. He was also just a wonderful personality, and he had such a great sense of humor. I remember watching his appearances on Conan O'Brien a lot when he had Late Night with Conan O'Brien. He seemed to be a great sport about the whole Will Ferrell parody on SNL, which was hilarious. He's someone who's going to be really missed. I know he did more than just Inside the Actors Studio. He actually
an actor,
actor himself, and he led that studio like as an actual class.
Yeah, truly like a gifted interviewer, which isn't always easy to do, and somebody who could really open people up. Yeah, so especially for acting and what that's all about, you know. Yeah, he was really special.
May he rest in peace. Thoughts and prayers to his family. Anyway, let's transition to some Star Wars stuff. Rise of Skywalker novel confirms Palpatine was a clone. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool.
Very cool.
Star Trek 4 news. Also, this Reylo kiss. They have something that came out about it too, according to the novel. And then we'll see what else we got on the agenda today. But let's talk about Palpatine officially being a clone as confirmed by the novelization of Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker.
Which is available on March 17th. So spoilers for the novel.
They were like, oh, we need to course correct some more.
We're still mad and talking about this.
Throw this in the novel. This is via Screen Rant. All the vials were empty of liquid save one, which was nearly depleted. Kylo peered closer. He'd seen this apparatus before too, when he'd studied the Clone Wars as a boy. He watched all the seasons and was waiting for Disney Plus to unveil the last season. He wasn't able to catch up before he encountered the liquid flowing into the living nightmare before him was fighting a losing battle to sustain the Emperor's putrid flesh. What could you give me? Kylo asked. Emperor Palpatine lived after a fashion, and Kylo could feel in his very bones that this clone body sheltered the Emperor's actual spirit. It was an imperfect vessel. Though unable to contain his immense power, it couldn't last much longer. So that must be why he wanted to suck the life force out, or the body was rejecting it. The way how Rise of Skywalker seemed to have been made was off of course correcting from The Last Jedi and hearing fan base disagreements here. Oh man, they really didn't like some things, and oh crap, we never really explained how Palpatine is back. I guess that's a plot. I didn't think people would ask.
I didn't think people would care about intimate details and backstory.
So let's throw it in the book, because now it's canon and they fixed it.
And this will drive those book sales up.
It's still stupid, guys. It makes sense. It would have been better if you just threw in a line in the movie, and I think we would have rolled right with it.
I mean, I don't know exactly how clones in Star Wars work 100%. This doesn't really reveal a ton because it's actually his spirit. It's just a clone body. So it's not really saying much other than this is a temporary skin suit. How did Palpatine's essence survive?
Well, yeah. I mean, how he did survive from Return of the Jedi, it's explained here, transferred his spirit into a clone. Then I guess by having this line here, because one of the criticisms was, if he is a clone, why did he choose like this decaying body? They explain it here that it's an imperfect vessel.
Yeah, it's too evil. It's just sucking up all the life force.
And for some reason along the way, he also cloned a bunch of Snokes while he was at it.
That was he was gonna jump into that body, and he was like, nah, I don't like this at all.
I need to disappear for the right amount of time before I come back. This was always the plan. According to Colin Trevorrow's script, this was always the plan.
Definitely always the plan. Colin Trevorrow loved the whole Emperor bit, especially. There's even more Emperor in his version.
According to the novel here,
there's no love in the kiss!
Via Screen Rant.
No love in the kiss!
The Kylo Ren kiss confirmed to be non-romantic. Here's the excerpt.
This is comicbook.com.
comicbookmock.com, yes, sorry everyone. His heart was as full as Rey reached for his face.
Let her fingers linger against his cheek, and then, wonder of wonders, she leaned forward and kissed him. A kiss of gratitude, acknowledgement of their connection, celebration that they'd found each other at last. But then she drew back, concern on her face. She could feel him growing cold. Ben smiled at her. He'd given Rey back to the galaxy. It wouldn't atone for the darkness he'd wrought, but it was what he could do.
It was a platonic kiss, non-romantic at all.
She couldn't have just said thank you. She needed to kiss him.
For their romance was not properly earned if they had kissed out of a romantic sense. Even though, from a third-party perspective, it might look like it was a romantic kiss. But this was more of the kiss Angelina Jolie might have given her brother back in the day in a galaxy far, far away.
I forgot about that. Thanks for bringing me back to that memory.
Gratitude kisses.
Yeah, those happen a lot in movies.
This just seems to go right back to, trying to clear things up.
Satisfy the fans and somehow make the reception to this movie better.
So in between all this, all this time, from novelization, excerpts being released, to The Rise of Skywalker coming out, there was J.J. Abrams getting asked questions about how he felt towards the criticisms, and he was there to go, they're all right! Everyone's right! Right now, everyone's right!
Everyone's correct, all the theories are correct!
Everyone's right until the novel comes out, and that's what's correct, depending on what people really don't like and what they do like.
I feel like this novelization was finished a long time ago, and they held it over just so that they could address these fan notes. Which is not an unsmart idea, but it's also not a smart idea.
And then on the other spectrum of things, one of the things that seems to be one of the main movie news things coming out today, from the other side of the galaxy, Star Trek.
Ooh.
Simon Pegg, who did appear in The Force Awakens, close friends with J.J. Abrams, he was speaking at Games Radar via Dark Horizons, and here's what he said about Star Trek, the franchise, pretty much.
And why the fourth one's been delayed.
The fact is, Star Trek movies don't make Marvel money. They make maybe $500 million at the most. And to make one now, on the scale they've set themselves, is $200 million? You have to make 3 times that to make a profit. But see, people don't realize that Simon Pegg actually sounds like that. He's not British. I don't feel like the last one. Hey, we'll take advantage of the 50th anniversary. The regiment at the time dropped the ball in the promo of the film, and we lost momentum. I think losing I'll be sincere. I think losing Anton Yelchin was a huge blow to our little family. Our enthusiasm to do another one might have been affected by that, so I don't know. I mean, yeah, I agree with Simon Pegg on what they're talking about here. Star Trek Into Darkness didn't even make $500 million worldwide. Star Trek is known for more of being, like, for the real Trekkie fans, it's more of a philosophical, thought-provoking, true spectrum of sci-fi that's not about spectacle. And of course, when you're doing your show and then you graduate into the movies, you want to add a little bit more spectacle into the equation. And it made sense when they rebooted it, like, you could see why they went down that direction. But Star Trek is not Star Wars. I feel like that's what Simon Pegg was trying to do with bringing Star Trek Beyond to the big screen, him co-writing it, and it felt more like an episode out of Star Trek. It seems like Paramount really doesn't know what to do with it. Noah Hawley is expected to helm the reboot. I mean, he had that Lucy movie come out, which wasn't really received all that well. Yeah. He does great work on television, so I could see why they might have wanted to bring him to do Star Trek. At the same time, Simon Pegg is 100% right, and I'm glad he's been pretty outspoken, pretty vocal about, like, the issues he's had with the development. Because he seems to, out of anyone on the cast, to have been, I don't have any, like, actual facts to back this up with, other than the fact that it's Simon Pegg. He's known to be a nerd. He's known to be a geek. There's a part of him that just kind of reads to me as feeling truly, not betrayed, but disappointed, because he's a real avid fan of it. I think he really did love his experience, especially with the first film. That's true. Like, it was the 50th anniversary for Star Trek Beyond, and they didn't really push it, and the marketing was kind of weird on it. It felt like it wasn't all that eventful, and yeah, it's a bummer.
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, since they started the new movie franchise, I've gotten that sense that there is some kind of spiritual friction at work. I mean, for as much as people, especially like the first one, I feel like Into Darkness is a bit more divisive, but I've always felt like this franchise was at odds with spectacle, basically. Because especially even the stuff that comes in the second movie with Khan and everything, just the answers are pretty brutish and not as intellectual as you would hope. And I think that's a great observation, is, yeah, for somebody like Simon Pegg, who grew up on this stuff, that it's also informed his creativity, somebody who's had a hand in the franchise, who's been able to at least give his 2 cents on how it ought to maybe move forward. Like, I respect that effort that he's put into it, and I think he's, again, absolutely right, because these movies arguably ought to exist on a slightly different scale, aimed at a slightly different piece of the audience, and I think it is a mistake to try and force them into this mold that a lot of movies now get forced into that are like, if it ain't Marvel money, it's not worth making that money. And I think that's a pretty nearsighted thing, and I think we've kind of seen, and it's funny that these 2 big franchises have been J.J. Abrams central because they both have trouble with rehash and with not going very far in terms of their intellectual inclinations, and especially for Star Trek, that matters a lot more.
Well, I think J.J., where he faults is continuation and conclusion. I think he's great for getting things off the ground with a reboot. MI3, Star Trek, the 2009 version, was awesome. And then The Force Awakens was a really successful, while I was met with his criticisms, it was a good first step for relaunching this franchise. When he's doing these continuations points where you're like, oh, come on, dude. Stop it. Stand it off again.
That's fair. And I also think the point about Anton Yelchin is fair because having had 3 films with him, he is a part of the ensemble. And I mean, he was really good in that role, so his presence or lack thereof would certainly be some kind of hole. And then it leaves you to go, well, are they going to recast or are they going to just put a new character in there?
Well, I think Star Trek would benefit more from the mid-budget range. I don't see why they don't attempt to do that. Even when I see the trailers for their shows like Picard and
Discovery.
Discovery. Damn, these look so huge, humongo. Yeah. And I've heard good things about both, obviously. It's just for the movies themselves, they could take a page out of what DC's kind of been doing, go for something more in the mid-range, and I think you can do that with Star Trek. It doesn't need to be this giant spectacle. You need maybe 1 or 2 really cool sequences. Yeah. But you don't need to pitch it as an action movie.
Yeah. and I think that's the thing too, is Star Trek has always been at odds with its budget on TV. Yeah. So I feel like not having all the money isn't going to hinder Star Trek all that much, and it's probably going to create a situation where the writers got to get more clever, like what happened on the show.
All right, guys. Well, that's all our galaxy news. Apparently Mark Ruffalo wants a rematch with Thanos. That's never going to happen.
More timelines. Let's do it.
What do you guys think about Palpatine officially being confirmed as a clone? Does it make the movie better?
Does the loveless kiss between Kylo and Rey make the movie better? Do you want to see Star Trek 4?
Yeah, one of those. Leave your thoughts down below. Subscribe, click the notification bell. And before we wrap this up, I want to do some patron name call-outs to some folks who are pledged for our Deleted Takes BTS reward tier. We get access to our Patreon exclusive LED story as well. A whole lot of deleted moments from the sketches and stuff. Just want to shout these guys out. And those people are Javier Gomez,
Ruby,
Gregory Bullock,
Ryan Beatty, Darth Yoda 066,
Kenny Waters,
Maria Hammond,
Everett Baker,
Philip J. Smith Jr.,
Jennifer Smith,
Rosa Para,
Erica Tuesday,
Josh,
James Nobriga. Thank you all so much for pledging to our Patreon page. Go check out our stuff on Patreon. We're done.